4, 3, 2, 1. I told you before to be careful where you put your legs.
I was only trying to be helpful.
I can help myself. What are you waiting for? Come on. Come on. What are you waiting for? Come on. Come on.
For 7 decades, Michael Caine has been among the world's most renowned and recognisable actors.
It was just what I needed. A 1-inch god with a 2-inch penis.
The star of classics like Zulu, The Man Who Would Be King, and The Cider House Rules.
It's a miracle no one was killed.
But also films that brought his career to the brink of complete implosion.
I made a mistake.
Somehow, he has always found a way back.
You're a big man, but you're in bad shape. With me, it's a full-time job.
In this epic podcast series, we will watch and review every Michael Caine movie, from the greatest hits
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
to the incredible misses,
You failed to maintain your weapon, son.
and take a deep dive into the life and work of one of the world's most recognisable film stars.
His name is Michael Caine, and no one will forget his name.
Behave yourself.
To understand how he has made the mark of Caine.
Well, you all settled in? Right, we can begin. For God's sake, come in.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of The Mark of Caine, our epic voyage through the film career of Michael Caine, watching every single movie since his big break in the film Zulu in 1964, through a life and movies spanning 7 decades now. We'll climb the dizzying highs of his Oscar-winning performances in Hannah and Her Sisters and The Cider House Rules, and through the films that defined Caine as Caine, like The Italian Job, Get Carter, and The Man Who Would Be King, and the other films that also defined Caine as Caine. Those dumpster fire movies that most actors of his stature wouldn't have touched with a 6-foot barge pole, from Swarm to Jaws of Revenge to Megas, the list goes on. My name is Michael Foley, and joining me on this journey is Stephen Black, the creator and author of the Mallow News Twitter account and its accompanying book. Stephen, how are you?
I'm good, Mick. I feel as if I'm about to climb Mount Everest, and I'm trepidatious. I'm full of excitement, but the Sherpas have deserted us, and I'm only now beginning to notice the hordes of dead, frozen bodies surrounding me. Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? Like, are we excited? Is that a dangerous emotion right now? We've seen the filmography, like we know, we have an idea of what's coming.
Yeah, it's pretty much anything bad that happens to us, we deserve it. Much like those tourists on Everest who don't prepare and die.
I think there'll at least be a good dose of brain fever in there anyway. So look, this is the way we're going to do this, okay? We're going to start this first episode, okay, as a kind of gather up of his life and film career so far right now, okay? So that's 17 movies down straight away. By the way, I counted his movies recently, okay? I went to the filmography, counted them down. So to date, Caine has appeared in or is slated to appear in 136 movies, 136 of them, right? So we're going to knock 17 of those down today. And then we're going to start properly, if you like, with Zulu, the next episode, his big break. And then each episode, we'll focus on a single movie. Occasionally, we might bundle a few together, especially when we reach the era of cameo Caine. But every film will get the full treatment, as in, we'll watch the whole thing.
Yes, we will watch the whole thing, and we promise that we won't skip through to the bits that Caine is in. That would be unethical.
That would be very unethical. No fast forwarding. But I would imagine no rewinding either. So just in case you're wondering who we are and why us, why are we doing this? I keep it brief because our qualifications actually really don't extend really beyond knowing each other a very, very long time and having a history of watching a lot of television and film with very little quality control. I'd find as much merit actually in bad TV as the good stuff, and the same with movies, which I think is probably a good quality for dealing with the Caine catalogue.
That's right, Mick. Many adolescents would foolishly focus on pursuing girls, sports, academia. That wasn't for me. No, I'd much rather sit down and watch shit non-stop on television or on video. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else you would have spent your adolescence.
No, that's pretty much it. And I think on at least 2, if not indeed those 3 criteria, we proved ourselves to be abject failures as teenagers in different ways. Anyway. So that's where we are. This is our glittering sort of qualifications for this particular role. We've done no prior training apart from watching loads and loads of crap movies through our lives. So I think that'll give us enough oxygen to kind of get a fair way up this particular hill. Before we just get into the things, I just want to kind of, why are we doing this, right? Can you kind of put meat on the bones of this for people? Like, I mean, people will go, yeah, Michael Caine, yeah, good actor, done some good movies, done some bad ones, but sure hasn't everybody. Like, why should we be looking at Michael Caine of all actors and delving into his filmography like this?
I think it's mainly because, as you mentioned at the start, there is no other living actor, emphasis on living, actor who's a career like him. He's basically been making movies since the 60s. He's gone from box office gold to box office poison, often within the same year and often within the same movie. He's bounced back like a serial killer at the end of a horror movie. In later years, he seems to have selected movies based on the location and how much money he's been paid, and depending on the time of his life, how drunk he was when he was reading the script. So I think from many perspectives, he's a very interesting actor. I don't know about you, Mick. The first time I ever came across Michael Caine that I can remember anyway was in Educating Rita, which is the first video that we ever rented. And for younger listeners, just Google what a video is. It's a historical way of watching movies before you could download them or stream them illegally.
Yeah.
So other than that, kind of through the years, you kind of see him in movies of varying quality, but always in the back of my mind, I've always been wondering, what is it about him that actually makes him popular? You'd see him and it's Michael Caine, and it's Michael Caine in every, more or less, over the years. It's a different type of Michael Caine. You might see it might be, standing up Michael Caine through the 60s and 70s. Then there's a hungry for the work Michael Caine in the 80s. And then when you get into the 90s and up to now, really, he's transitioning from the roomy, wet-eyed patrician role to the Michael Caine now sits down role. Basically, we do it for the last couple of years, which is every role I must be sitting down, and if I could eat at the same time, that would be great.
It would be fantastic.
So basically, just looking at what I'm looking to get out of this, I suppose, really is an understanding about why he is famous. Because on paper, it doesn't make sense. I mean, he's not handsome. I mean, obviously, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But if you look at his peers at the time when he came up, with the likes of maybe Sean Connery or Paul Newman or Robert Redford, I mean, compared to them, he looks like a kind of an albino iguana. So, it's not just that. Is it charm? I guess. Yeah. Maybe there might be something in the night about him. I don't know. It's not we can't really get into the time machine and ask our grandparents whether or not he made their ovaries tickle or something. So basically, what we're hoping to do is look at these movies and look at his life in the context of the movie at the time that he was making them, and see if there's kind of any understanding to what he brings to the screen as an actor, or what he brings to a role as Michael Caine.
Yeah.
And that's basically one of the reasons, the main reason why I'm doing this, and not just because I came up with the title first and convinced you to do this as a result of that.
I mean, it's a fantastic title, though. I have to say, The Mark of Caine. I mean, it was enough. It was enough of a reason to come up with some way to link any kind of topic to that title and make a podcast out of it. But yeah, as you say, he's not a conventionally good-looking guy compared to your Newmans, your Redfords, and your Connerys. I mean, he describes himself at the time as like being a gangly, pale lad with a big nose, and of course then he adds the black glasses. But it is interesting, this screen presence, this charisma. As is he inhabiting these? He'll often say in his interviews and in his books that he tries to inhabit a character. But I mean, when you're watching Michael Caine in a movie, you're very conscious that you're watching Michael Caine. That's one of the selling points of the movie. It's Caine, so there must be something about his charm or his charisma, isn't it?
Yeah, he doesn't disappear into the role. He's not like Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, it's not like he went off to study quantum mechanics, like for 6 years before playing a physicist in Interstellar, or practiced at being a morphine addicted abortionist, so he could get the role inside House Rules perfect.
It is charisma. There is something about him, but we'll get into all that. I mean, I think I had a bit more of awareness of Michael Caine compared to yourself for very simple reasons. Like, my first memory of him is on a movie poster. Our uncle used to own a video shop, and he used to give us video posters posters for movies that they didn't do. So we had like Platoon on the wall and all sorts of stuff that were completely inappropriate for 8 and 9 year olds. We had Blame It on Rio, which is something from the mid 80s that I think will be a low point, I'd say, in his career. But that was Michael Caine's name was on my wall when I was a kid. We had a book at home called Not Many People Know That. It was a book. It wasn't an autobiography or a biography. It was a book of interesting facts compiled in inverted commas by Caine and put out. And, you know, obviously I don't have the book anymore, but I did go to Amazon just to see what the reviews were like. And don't mind the book, but the reviews are well worth having a read of. Like, you know, just to give you a sense of the one particular review. I won't dwell on this, but it's good. The reviewer says, another extremely unfortunate point that has to be made is that many of Kane's facts are, even to the layman, clearly spurious. Incorrect, that is, or if not incorrect, certainly insanely difficult to verify. Like the fact that some soft drinks are made sweeter by adding coal. Or that an American aircraft in Vietnam shot itself down with one of its own missiles. So it's so not many people know that. So it was like a book full of those. So I used to dip in and out of these things. And I just thought, who is this guy? And then we were a little bit older, myself and my brother.
I mean, that brings us back to what you were saying earlier. How were you not more of a hit with the ladies in secondary school, considering you had that armory at your disposal?
I was coming with this array of interesting facts.
Excuse me. Sorry, I don't mean to shout at you at the nightclub, but did you know?
Did you know about the American aircraft in Vietnam that shot itself down with one of its missiles? Why are you running away?
You're walking away. That's fine.
Why are you running away? What's your problem?
That's an appropriate response.
It's like, but to be fair, this reviewer also makes the very good point that these facts can be made an awful lot funnier if read aloud in a pseudo Cockney accent. But anyway, we also had a recording on video of Too Late the Hero, but actually half of the movie Too Late the Hero, which is an early 70s war movie starring Kane that's largely been forgotten about. But myself and my brother watched it so much we practically knew the script. And
was it the first half or the
second half? Oh, the good half. I actually dipped into Too Late to Hero recently just to see what it was like. I had no memory of the first half, but it goes on a bit. It picks up a bit better in the second half. But anyway, that's for another day. Of course, as we know, Michael Caine wasn't born Michael Caine. He was born Morris Joseph Micklewhite. He was born on the 14th of March, 1933. Lived in Southwark in London. As a kid, was taken out of the city during World War II, came back, lived in the Elephant and Castle after the war. His father was he was a fish market porter in Billingsgate. Didn't he suffer? Do you remember something about? Did he suffer from rickets or something like that as a kid? Do you remember there was this whole thing. He used to tell this story about going up the 5 flights of stairs to his house, and so the toilet was outside.
He did. Yeah, he said he had rickets when he was one of the ways he used to build up his the strength of his legs was making going up and down the 5 flights of stairs to use the jacks outside.
That was it.
So that was one of the marvelous anecdotes that litter his many, many biographies.
I lived in a house that had 4 floors, 1 toilet, and that was out in the garden, and no bathrooms. My parents were obviously very poor, but we certainly were millionaires as far as love was concerned. What I adored was the cinema, and so as often as possible I would play truant from school, because I'd already got the idea that I wanted to be an actor. And I remember when I told people I was going to become an actor, that the answer that I got most often was, "Who do you think you are?" And I thought, who the hell do I have to be an actor?
He was a Korean War veteran, of course. Fought in the Korean War. In fairness to him, had a very close encounter during that. He was on a patrol towards Chinese lines and had a very, very narrow escape back to his own side. Could have taken him out, and seems to have had a huge impact on his thinking about things through his life, as it would. Came home. His father passed away quite young. He was died in 1955, so that would have made Caine 21, 22. His father was 56. He died of liver cancer. There was an interesting dynamic between his father and himself, wasn't there? Kind of around Caine being an actor.
I think, his father was under the impression because, and Caine freely admits this in his autobiography, that he wasn't such a hit with the ladies, partnered with the fact that he decided he wanted to pursue a career in acting, that his father thought that he might be gay. But he makes a point. He makes many points about how he isn't homosexual within the first few chapters of his book. But one of the stories he tells is that after he's basically been acting for a little while before he makes it big now, because his father dies before he gets his big break. But his father, looked him straight in the eye and asked, "Are you a Nancy boy?" To which Michael responded, no, I'm not. And that was the end of the matter. So it was, again, a lot of his stories end up like such and such happened, and after it happened, I vowed to myself I would never do X again, or I would only do Y again. He was a man who's completely built his character around things that have happened to him in his life.
Which is, well, that's not uncommon, to be fair. It's not uncommon, but like he kind of does make the whole point, like, you know, his father died young, and he decided, you know, he was going to make something of himself no matter what. So, but to be fair, like, you know, his father's death obviously has a huge impact on him, and he does say that, you know, it makes him determined to make acting work no matter what. Which kind of,
but he says that every 5 pages.
I know.
He says that every 5 pages. And then a friend of mine committed suicide, and then I decided, and then an agent rejected me, and then I decided, I got angry. I was decided I'd make it despite them, and then I couldn't afford milk, and the milkman looked at me, and then in a strange way, and then I decided I'd show him I'd become the best man actor there ever was. It's
unbelievable. This is like being on one of those angry phone-in shows where you don't get a chance to speak. What I was going to say was that this episode and this conviction in him to make it work may well explain why he basically says yes to so many awful things. That there's more in his head. There's more to life than the work, you know, than making this flawless. That's in some places. What movie was it that he says he's never seen the film, but he's seen the house it built? Oh.
Jaws the Revenge. Yeah.
So, you know, he's got a bigger world view as a result of what happens to him at a young age.
What do you know? I mean, you have a point. I'm only taking the piss of me, but really, he was a late bloomer in terms of actually making it. So he was 30.
Yeah, and married. I mean, he got married in 1954.
Married with a kid at that stage. So he had basically a decade of penury and poverty before he actually made it big. So literally, he was hungry for so long that, I mean, it definitely would have, I guess, had an impact on the movie making decisions that he made over the subsequent 40, 50 years.
Exactly. I don't think it left him. So yeah. So I mean, as I say, he was married in 1954. He was already an actor at that stage. His first role was a very small role in a production of Wuthering Heights with the Westminster Repertory Company. That was July 1953. He meets Patricia Haynes when he moves to another repertory company. They marry. They have a daughter, Dominique, 2 years later. But the marriage breaks up very soon afterwards. According to himself, getting married and having a child really puts a stop on his career, and he ends up doing all these kind of, you know, menial jobs that he doesn't really want to be in. So he basically kind of, I mean, you can look at it whatever way you want, but he basically walks away and freely admits that he wasn't. He really didn't have a relationship with his daughter until she was for probably another 12 or 13 years. But he moves in with Terence Stamp. He's hanging out with all these Peter O'Toole. He was an understudy to Peter O'Toole for a play. He's surrounded now by upcoming actors in London. Frank Finlay is another one that he plays. That he's involved in the play with, The Long, the Short, and the Tall himself, and Terence Stamp actually is in it as well. But there, you know, all this is happening now. We're now at sort of like late 50s, early 60s, and he's starting to be in these movies that we were talking about earlier, these non-speaking roles, these kind of extra background guys and so on, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he does at various stages have to go back to what he deems menial jobs to kind of keep the light on and wherever he's living. My own favourite story is when he was working the night shift in a donut factory.
All right.
With a bunch of lads, and they used to play this very interesting game with ring donuts, and it put them off eating ring donuts for life.
See, classic Kane anecdote. You know, even the most mean, I'm doing a menial job, but I'll hang a story on it that has a lesson for life.
Yeah. We should probably just draw a line under this as well. We could say to you that we'll do our best not to make terrible Michael Caine impersonations throughout this podcast series, but I can't make promises.
I can't make it, but you know what? I think we should commit that if we are doing Caine impressions, that they are contemporary Caine impressions. So if it's a 60s movie, it's young Michael Caine. If it's kind of moving in 70s and 80s, it's the 80s Caine. And if it's patrician Caine,
do 80s Caine. Do 80s Caine for me there. So
Caine. I'm not going to do 80s Caine.
You're going to work your way.
But I can't.
Are you hoping that you'll be so old by the time we get to 80s Caine that your voice will have that natural timbre?
Yeah.
That you can kind of go a bit more.
I'll be 80s Mick by then. But patrician Caine then, we slow it down. We talk. Bit wet-eyed. That was terrible. Wet-eyed. What am I?
That's Ray
What am I
Winstone,
from the
isn't
West Country? Anyway, you know what I mean. You can do a better Patrician Kane than I can anyway. But that we.
I can't do it. I can't. But what I will commit to making that. For most people, when they start off doing an impression with practice, they will get better. I make this commitment to you that I will get steadily worse.
Well, that's
until by the time we finish this, I will sound like a Cockney albatross that's had a stroke.
Well, that's something to look forward to. If nothing else from this podcast, so I'm looking forward to you becoming a stroke-afflicted Cockney albatross.
Consider that the life belt that I've just thrown into the fucking sea of torment that the next 100 or so of these.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Is there anything you want to say about any of the movies that he did, the first 17 before Zulu? Is there any ones you want to point up? Anything you want to say about them?
I suppose just one of the it was a made for TV movie. The Compartment was basically the one that got him signed up with Roger Moore's agent. Apparently, he was excellent at that. I think it's a two-hander set in a train compartment, where he plays a working class musician who gets more and more angry and frustrated with an upper class gentleman at the time. So it's kind of a class wars kind of thing. But the BBC taped over it, so there's presumably with a copy of Match of the Day. But yeah, it's gone. So we only have there is a version of it there, but they remade it in the 60s. But instead of Michael Caine, they have Marty Feldman.
Right. Okay.
Who's not exactly the most natural. I mean, if you were to do kind of like an increasing scale of bug-eyedness, you may have Michael Caine at the lower end where Marty Feldman's way up. There's that tenuous connection between the two of them.
But yeah, it's a different. That's taking the show in a totally different direction.
We all used to knock around in a place called the Arts Theatre Club. That's where I became Michael Caine, in actual fact. I had changed my name from Maurice Micklewhite to Michael Scott. And my agent said, there is another Michael Scott who is a member of Equity, and as you're going to do television, you must be a member of Equity. But I've got to have a name while you're on the phone now. Now I'm panicking. And Leicester Square is where all the cinemas, rather like Times Square in New York, are. And I'm looking around, and I could see through the trees. There was the Caine Mutiny film with Humphrey Bogart from the play The Caine Mutiny Court Martial was on. And through the trees, I could just see Caine. So I said, Michael Caine.
Hill in Korea. Hill in Korea is a movie from 1956. Obviously, it's set in the Korean War. He has a direct experience of that, but it's with Stanley Baker. And there is some interesting people in it. You've Stephen Boyd. Stephen Boyd mightn't be a name that leaps at you, but if I say Stephen Boyd played Masala in Ben-Hur 3 years later, he's Ben-Hur's great, and I suppose he ends up being his nemesis in the movie. He's in it. Stanley Baker, as I said. There's various other people that if you've been watching, if you watch kind of 50s, 60s British war movies, they're all in it. But he's in it. But what's significant about this one, and one of the reasons I picked it because it segues quite nicely, is that Stanley Baker, of course, was the producer of Zulu, and Baker went to see Caine in a play called Next Time I'll Sing to You, and he asked him to come to an audition for Zulu. This was obviously the big break. He was actually auditioning for a part of a Cockney corporal. I think it was a corporal anyway. Henry Hook, who plays a significant role in the movie afterwards. He did anyway. The part was gone when he got there, but Cy Enfield was the director, an American, and to that point, Caine was seen as the Cockney actor, so he was doing a bit of TV as well, and this was his thing. But Cy Enfield just saw this slim, pale-looking Englishman walking along, walking by the bar of the Prince of Wales Theatre where the auditions were on, and what struck him was that this guy looks like a slightly effete British officer. So he asks him to do a screen test. The screen test is appalling. Absolutely dreadful. He's at a party the following week. Cy Enfield is there. Caine is looking to see will Enfield engage in conversation. He eventually does, to tell him that the screen test was bloody awful, and he doesn't know why he's doing it, but he's going to give him a go at being Bromhead, who is one of the officers in Zulu, and he's going to take a chance on him basically, which is this is the break now. He's now at the doorstep You know, he's at the doorstep of what comes next. And we will come to the next episode. We'll be diving headlong into Zulu. And, go watch it. Go have a look at it. Even if you think you remember it, which I think most of us have seen it at some stage in our lives over Christmas or something like that, or any bank holiday, go find it again. Have a look at it. Come back for our next episode. We're going to start this. The longest journeys, Stephen, start with a small step.
That's true. They do, unless you're driving.
A fair point. And the sort of crushing diminuendo that I've no doubt we will get used to as these podcasts go along. Okay.
You see, I find that interesting now that you're so literate that you know the word diminuendo, but you pronounce the word effete.
Tomato. Well, I'm glad you're here to correct me as well, though. That's another reason why.
Oh, I can only imagine that won't come back.
Oh, I doubt it. I wouldn't be like that. All right. Are we happy? Have we said enough?
So yeah, I think we've done enough. If you have any questions about Zulu, feel free to hit us up on Twitter at MarkofKane2, and we'll do our best to answer them for you in the first episode proper.
Yeah, so look, go enjoy Zulu, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
What are you waiting for? Come on! Come on! What are you waiting for? Come on! Come on!
Okay, and that's it for our introductory episode, our light touch regulation episode into the world of Michael Caine. If you want to ask us any questions on Zulu, and of course you do, who wouldn't? You can hit us up on Twitter at MarkofKane2, fuck MarkofKane1, just to let you know that's two separate things. The Twitter handle is at MarkofKane2. Ask us any question you like, no matter how personal, and we'll talk to you next week.